Dwayne Wade was in China recently, and then he was speaking to Yao Ming, and he was saying that one of the challenges they have is, again, it's difficult. I don't know what it's like training under a European coach. One would be court training, two would be strength and plyometrics sort of training, and third would be...
Okay, welcome to my first podcast episode where I'll bring on guests to talk about interesting topics about basketball in Singapore. So if you have anybody in mind or any topics you want me to cover, just let me know in the comments down below and we'll make it work. So today's topic will be about training. So not just any type of training, it'll be about training as a basketball player in Singapore. So questions like, what does it take to play basketball overseas? And what should you focus on as a young basketball player in Singapore? So I have the perfect guest for us. His name is Isaac. So he's born and raised in Singapore. He's a lawyer in practice, but he's also a 3x3 player who has represented Sweden, traveling across countries like Serbia, China, and even the UK to play the game. So before we get started, I just want to say that Isaac honestly has been a big inspiration to me and other Singaporeans around, because he is one of the first few, if not the first Singaporean who has been able to play competitively overseas outside of Asia. Let's get to know Isaac just a little bit better. How did basketball start for you, Isaac?
Yeah, so thanks, Godel, for the kind words. I'm happy to be here and be part of your first podcast. So I think basketball started for me just like most kids in Singapore. I was in primary school during recess where there's a ball lying around in the corner. People would just pick it up and start playing, and we'll keep playing until the bell rings, right? And I feel like that activated a part of my brain when I was a kid that I really like this because of A, the competitiveness, and B, the community. I feel like maybe when I was a kid, I didn't really know how to articulate these things, but as I grow older, I see how these were the foundational building blocks for why I chose to stay in basketball all this time.
Was there any particular person that kind of brought you to the game? Like you said, you went on to recess, right? But was there anyone that brought you to the game itself, like a friend, a family member, anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's just the whole community, right, of boys in primary school, where like everyone would just come together and just play. And obviously there were a few people who on the school team, and they were slightly better than everyone else, but I didn't feel like there was any extremely high barriers to entry like maybe in other sports. So I was always constantly engaged, always had the opportunity to play. And growing up in Singapore, we're very lucky and fortunate that there is always a fully functioning and well-built basketball court near you in your local area. I think if there's someone who sort of pushed me in that direction, I think it would be my dad as well, where on the weekends he would take some time to bring me out to get some shots up at the local CC, manage to get some shots up. So I feel like, again, it's community, right? It's some sort of bonding time between me and my dad, and it's also healthy competition where if I win or if the team wins, I feel fulfilled, and if we lose, it's back to the drawing board. So that there is always this really good balance of fulfillment and motivation to keep going.
Which primary school were you from again?
Konghua Primary.
What was it?
Konghua.
Konghua.
Yeah.
What is Konghua?
It's near Old Airport Road.
Is it still around? Is Konghua still around?
Yeah. There's a very nice bar opposite now. Called
Okay.
Tuck Shop. So is in that area.
So after Konghua, where do you go after that? Did you join the basketball team when you were in Konghua?
So I joined for a little bit, but I was actually in the scouts that time. So I was fully committed to the scouts motto and the scouts crest. So I didn't really have time. The thing is, I knew that once I moved into secondary school, which is Dunman High School, I was gonna focus and put my efforts into basketball, and that's what happened afterwards.
Did you go through any kind of like special DSA, the kind of programs, anything like that?
No, so I was a non-DSA kid, and it was in the early years of the DSA program, right? So people weren't that familiar with it as we are now.
Yeah.
But I was obviously a bit intimidated by the number of DSA students.
So your school had a lot of DSA basketball players coming in?
Yeah. In fact, a majority, I think at least 7 or 8.
Oh wow! So getting a spot on the team was it a struggle for you at the start? In secondary school?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was a big struggle. I feel like I was always punching up, which was good, right? But I didn't have any competitive experience. I was just really interested. I was pretty short back then when I first started. So I always had to find different ways to add value when I'm on the
Yeah.
court, or to justify my existence on the court and not on the bench. So I think that sort of training at the beginning gave me,
Yeah.
a different mindset as well. That like nothing would come easy, right?
Yeah. Okay, let's sidetrack a bit. Since we're talking about secondary school, I just wanted to bring up this photo of us. Just me and Isaac. We actually had a photo together. Even though we didn't know each other until like last year. So this photo is, I don't know, you can you see it?
Oh yeah, I can. Wow.
So I don't know. Do you remember seeing this photo? That's Isaac right there, number
Is that
9,
behind?
and
And you're behind me, right? Is that?
yeah, I'm right behind you. I'm right behind you. And
Wow.
if I were to play the video, what happened after this, right? You break the shot, lah. So I guess good defense,
This is the pre-Bruno era, so
yeah.
it's like that. But yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's crazy. I feel like I remember it's a bit of a core memory where we played against bigger, I guess, basketball schools like you guys from Unity.
Yeah.
But like every one of you could shoot and had an offensive threat, right? So it's not like I remember a
Yeah.
single person. I just remember like going to those games. Like I just didn't really know what to expect, because there wasn't really any defensive assignment. Like everything was a mismatch.
So yeah, maybe you can just move on from our secondary school days. Now gliding through to your old, your maturing days, where you made the Singapore team, right? You made a national team after your secondary school days. Was it?
No, I actually made it after uni.
Yeah.
So after I graduated from uni, before I took a short gap, 8 months, and I knew that was the time for me to push in basketball. I went for the tryouts and I reached out to coaches to try to get a spot on the team. So
Oh.
it was good for me, because I think most players start when they are young, but I entered the national training squad and the team eventually when I was slightly more mature. So I feel like, obviously there are a lot of things that I could still learn, but my mental state was better when I knew what I wanted to do and I managed to do
Right.
it.
How was that? Like, because most national team players, at least those that I know of, actually start really young. Like they have a connection to the team, maybe
Yeah.
even in secondary school already. That's where it all starts, right? But it sounded like you only started after uni, which you're at least 20, right? At
Yeah,
that point of time.
yeah. That was the official sort of my official membership of the national team was after uni, but actually during uni over the summer, where I would come back, I would join the team for training, and that's where I met. We had a coach back then called Coach Frank
Yeah.
Osego from Australia, and I think he was the guy that first gave me the opportunity to train and then to play.
Yeah.
So I think I really credit the beginning of that journey to him, and obviously the other people in the fraternity. But yeah, that
How,
was, so it wasn't just a 0 to 100 real quick sort of
right. Right.
entrance
How do
into
you,
the
how do
team.
you like get in contact with like the coach? Like it sounds, because it sounded like, do you already know them, or was it like a cold call or anything like that?
I was actually playing for SAFSA in during NS,
Oh,
and
okay.
then we played in the NBL Division 1 and 2. So that's when I started to know a lot more people. And
Yeah.
then before I started uni, I also had about 8 months after NS, and I played for Home United. And
Hmm.
so I was sort of, I had good connections, and so people knew how I played, and were willing to give me a look. And I think what was key for me was always being committed every summer when I come back. Right, it wasn't just like on and off. I
Mm,
made sure that I knew what was going on, and
mm, mm.
every time I come back, I was ready to train,
Yeah.
as much as I could
Yeah.
prepare myself.
Interesting. So you kind of like played your way up to the national team in a sense, whereby you're playing in the divisions, you're playing for teams that are recognizable, and then
Yep.
from there you get noticed, and then you get connected with the right people. Oh, okay,
Yep.
very nice, very
Yep.
interesting. You're in London right now, right?
Yep.
Before coming to London, now you're playing 3x3 semi-professionally, competitively at least. So did you imagine yourself being where you are today before going to London? Or did you imagine coming to London and then I want to play 3x3 when I'm here?
The answer is no. I feel like every day sometimes I have to pinch myself and remind myself that I feel I'm not supposed to be here, because like no one has really done this before, and I think we are just the people, my family, for example, is probably a bit more risk averse. So the sort of things that I'm doing today is not something that we have thought about, right? And it's a learning process every step of the way, but I sort of expected myself to do the training as a lawyer here and then move back afterwards. But then, I decided at the same time that, there's actually a lot of room to explore and people to meet, and I wanted to just keep going. And so things just kept escalating after COVID, and I put myself in a position where, when the opportunity comes, I should be ready to take those, and that's
Yeah.
basically what happened. And like the opportunity just came together in a way that I couldn't imagine, right? And
Yeah.
so it's been such a blessing to be able to travel around and play and to play against really good competition. For example, recently we went to Italy and we played against a few guys who were in the World Tour or even in the Olympic qualifier
Oh wow.
tournament. I mean,
How
I'm
how
glad.
how, how was that? How was that? Like, tell us a bit of insight when you played against them. How did it feel?
So I feel like because this was a quest, right? So it's the lowest rung of the FIBA 3x3 hierarchy, where you go from a quest to I think a challenger, and then to a masters, and then world tour. So everyone has to sort of start at the quest level, right?
Right. So these are like
Unless,
levels of competitive 3x3. So you start at quest, then move on to like challenger,
yeah,
then so on and so forth. Okay. Okay.
yeah. So how it works, it filters out all the slightly more amateurish teams.
Yeah.
And so when you get to the world tour, it's all the Jimmer Fredettes and the really full-time pro teams. But then you see sometimes where some of these pro players would be a +1 on some of these quest teams.
Mm.
So you get to see the level they're at. And I think the size is obviously different. They're all 6'8",
Yeah.
6'7", and agile. And the thing about 3x3 is that you can't just be stuck in the paint, right? Like a pure big. You have to be able to guard the perimeter because it's 2s and 1s and not 3s and 2s. And so it's quite amazing to see these players who are 120 kg but moving around like that. And if they seal you in the post, like there isn't really anything you could do.
So it's like barbecue chicken for them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think like for me, it was just trying to avoid being in that position as much as
Yeah.
I could. But in the heat of the game, there's always moments when you get caught, right? And I got caught so many times where his back was to the basket. I'm just in between him and the basket, but there
Yeah.
not really any opposition for him. So that is the experience, and it was really good to see.
Yeah, so maybe you can tell me a bit more about playing these European players. As you said, the size is one of the main differences between us, Singaporean Asians, as compared to the much bigger sized Europeans. Anything else, besides size? Is there any other stark differences between us and them?
First of all, if we talk about what the focus is in Europe, right? I would say by and large it's precision and tactics, right? And then if you look at North America, I think the emphasis is a lot more on isolation, physicality, one-on-one. And then if you think about Asia, and maybe you can help me out with the answer, which because I don't know. I would think that speed and sort of ball handling is the thing that we thrive the most and also put an emphasis on. Because if you
Yeah,
look at the best players in the Philippines, right? For example, or the most high profile players in Asia, they are usually point guards who are quick, who can shoot, who have good
yeah,
handles, right? And that's how we compete because on average, maybe our average height and our size is smaller, right?
yeah,
Compared to
yeah.
the other continents. So I feel like that might be one of the difference. I'm not
Mm,
sure, but that's also from a 5-on-5 point of view. From a
yeah,
3-on-3 point of view, because it's quite fresh for everyone and
yeah,
you're not, yeah, I mean, if you want to find four guys who are 6'8", even in Asia, it's quite easy to find that, right? It's not like you
yeah.
need to find in 5-on-5 where there are so many teams. You need to then it's
Yeah,
more.
China and India are like super big. They're like huge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Mongolia is a pretty big one as well. They are
I,
getting
I really
taller.
like Mongolia. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Mongolia is really a shining light for Asia and the way they play.
yeah.
So yeah, and so that I think that going back to your question, that's the first angle, right? That's the skill and the focus is different.
Different. Yeah,
Um,
I understand.
but then
Yeah, cool.
it's hard to just like talk about basketball in a vacuum as just on the court, right? But if we look at it
Yeah,
from the social side, the attitudes towards basketball, and
yeah,
which is also very key towards the success that maybe other countries have over us, is that I think people in Europe or in the US are more willing to view sport as having intrinsic value, right? Just by virtue of playing. You
yeah,
don't need to earn an immediate financial benefit from it or have some sort of long-term plan, right? People are willing to play and train on their own accord without any reward. And there are people in Asia who are willing to do that too. Just that, the prevailing sentiment is that, what are you doing this for, right? And is it a viable, is it viable in the long term, blah, blah, blah. Is it worth getting injured, right? And I think that really cuts out a lot of people from the process that are actually very good. And so when it comes to the question of Asia versus Europe, right? I think the thinking is also something that I hesitate to say we need to work on. It's just it's pros and cons thing, right? There is it's a give and take, right? We give in this area so that we can have greater economic freedom or whatever it is. But if we just want to improve sports, I think there needs to be a mindset shift.
Well, that is a lot. Like, bam. Now you guys, everybody's listening right now, you guys just got a whole download on an oversight on what Isaac thinks about the world. Let's bring us back to where we want to talk about, which is training. You have been playing competitively 3x3 for how long now? Since 2019, was it?
Maybe about 2 to 3 years now, actually. So after COVID.
So what is your role on the court, like on a 3x3 court, with your team at least?
I think the role is to fill all the gaps that we have. So maybe in terms of like rebounding, you need a guy who is slightly more versatile. And I think I fill that role. We have really good shooters, we have really good slashers and good passers. But when it comes to a guy who needs to do a bit of the dirty work at times, who needs to be able to shoot the ball if it's open, who needs to be able to get a layup when it's required, I feel like I fill that role. So it's not like I have a strict sort of mandate on what to do, but I try to sort of do a bit of everything. And
so you're kind of like that Swiss Army knife, that band-aid, kind of stop the bleeding.
Yeah. I mean, everyone does a bit of everything, but when it comes to the sort of skill set, I feel like my role is slightly more versatile to do even to set screens and stuff, which is not ideal, but you do what you got to do.
So training as a basketball player, overseas as a Singaporean, how is that different? You have trained in Singapore, you have trained overseas. How is that different for you?
I think again a few angles. If we talk about the facilities, like I think Singapore has definitely the best facilities, right? Like a lot of your local gyms and parks and exercise corners, they you can do a lot of damage if you use them wisely, and unless it's raining, it's very easy for you to just go out in the evening, right? Whereas out here, I think the facilities are a lot more harder to get to a good facility, and you have to factor in the cold, you have to factor in the wind. I need to make sure that when I get into the gym here, I have to make my times worth, because these opportunities don't come, are far and few between, right?
Oh, okay. That's really surprising for me, because like I don't know, Singapore, for me at least, I always thought that Singapore had a lack of facilities, like in terms of do I get to go to an indoor court? I always thought that especially in European countries, it will be much easier to get to an indoor court, just because of I was guessing they will have a lot of more private courts there and gyms that you can get into. But doesn't seem like the case. From the
I
way
would think that is
speaking.
true of other countries, but not England, because I guess basketball isn't really at the top of the agenda. SG's outdoor courts are very, very
accessible.
they are very, very high quality, right? Compared to some of the courts you see here, where it's an uneven road, even, and the lines are weird, and the backboard is this small, and it's different.
Right. Have you played on one of those outdoor courts before, like in the UK and in London?
Yeah, a lot, yeah. Because sometimes when I just need to get a feel for the ball before a game, I would just go down to my local park, right, and just get some shots up, and it's not ideal, but at least there's a rim and I have a ball.
So besides the facilities, like how about the training? Because you have been training as in Singapore under a coach. In London, I'm not too sure. Do you have a coach there or anything like that?
Yeah, we have a really good coach from the Czech Republic who used to play pro as a point guard.
So how's the difference, like having a coach in Singapore and then having a coach back where you're at right now? Are the systems different? Do they have a different format, a different structure of their trainings?
Yep.
Although training for you are different, because 5v5 and then you had 3x3 here. So,
Yeah,
but just in general,
yeah, it's a bit comparing apples to orange, but
yeah,
in general, I think, um, and I want to raise an example, right, where
mm,
Dwayne Wade was in China recently, and then he was speaking to Yao Ming, and he was saying that one of the challenges they have is the lack of autonomy given to players in China, where this actually stunts the growth of really good players, right? Because
mm,
they the coach's voice is number one,
louder.
right? And I
Yeah,
feel like it should be the case to some extent, right?
yeah,
But I think for us we need to strike a balance, and I think, you know, in the long run, if you want to create a class of players who know what they want, who can take responsibility, who know what they want, who have their own independent mindset, you need to free them up a little bit, right? And I think, again, it's difficult. I don't know what it's like training under a European coach as a kid, because now I'm
yeah,
an adult, right? So there's a lot of autonomy. It's more of a conversation. That is something that we need to work on, and that's
mm,
the
mm,
difference. But the pros of training in Singapore, I think, is the discipline. I feel like the players are very willing to put in the work if they're told what to do, and
yeah,
that culture is good if we can, make it more productive and more creative. But
yeah,
that level of discipline and that, that ability to just stick to the program, as a basketball player in Singapore, you really, in school for example, you really don't have to worry about anything. You know
yeah,
what types of trainings are. The court is booked out for you.
yeah.
Travel to games is booked out, and these are certain privileges that people overseas don't necessarily get, right? That is also a benefit of training in Singapore.
As a player right now, right? What type of training do you do on the regular? Like, maybe you can run us through your how your week usually looks like from Monday to Sunday.
So I think there's probably three different rungs or pillars of training, and one would be court training, two would be strength and plyometrics sort of training, and third would be rehab. So from Monday to Friday, I try to do rehab maybe every day or once every 2 days, depending on whether there are games. And I think I never used to sort of prioritize rehab, right? But
Yeah, what is even rehab? Like, I don't think I've ever heard any player say that they are doing rehab.
so I think I would count like knees over toes guy as rehab, because ultimately, yes, it's a form of training that doesn't require weights, right? It's pure body
Yeah,
weight. It's pure getting used, getting comfortable, getting the balance, making sure that you're stretching out the right ligaments. But you're not necessarily, doing a heavy compound movement, right?
mm,
And I think those things really sort of keep my knees and my back and my body strong.
mm-hmm.
And it doesn't require a lot of time, right? If you look at knees over toes, which
Yeah,
is a guy on Instagram who gives out
yeah,
his knowledge, right, quite freely. It is very easy to do. All it takes is like half an hour, 45 minutes, right? And if you do it every day, I really saw the benefits.
yeah, yeah.
And it
Actually,
feels
it's super
amazing.
interesting about you mentioned knees over toes, guys, because
Yeah,
my oldest brother, he has been playing basketball his life, and he had like knee pain in his knee for like the longest time. So last
yeah,
year he started, some of his exercises, and this year he's saying that he's been playing basketball with no pain at all in his knees. Like he can wake up the
yeah,
next day feeling fresh. And
yeah,
yeah, any of you guys that are watching, and you're looking to keep your knees healthy, go and check out Knees Over Toes guy on YouTube, Instagram. His content is crazy. It's free. I can't believe it's free, but yeah, you guys
yeah,
check it out and practice what he does, and you guys will be playing ball till the day you die.
yeah. The ATG squat that he has, right, is a
Yeah,
staple. You have to do it every day, and it's easy. You can do it at home.
yeah,
You don't need a gym, right? You might need a little box or a little elevated thing,
yeah.
but like it's very easy. So that is something that over the last year and a half I've been doing a lot. And then when it comes to quad training, we train usually twice a week, and then one scrimmage. It will be on a Monday, which is technically also a scrimmage, but we try to implement what we learn on the Thursday, the
Yeah.
preceding Thursday. Thursday we have call time with our coach for about 2 hours in the morning, where we run through, we discuss film, we run through what we did wrong, how to improve plays. We pick out best practices from other teams, and then we try to engage in constraints-led training. So constraints-led training is, for example, rather than just playing 3-on-3 unregulated, you try to play 3-on-3 saying that you can only do pick and roll. You can only do a slip screen, right? And so you're constrained in what you can do. And then when it comes to a real game, it's not unfamiliar territory. So a lot of CLAs for us, I think, on Thursday.
What does CLA stand for again?
Constraints-led training. Approach. Constraint-led approach.
Okay.
And then Saturday we have 5-on-5 scrimmage, which is just to get the blood running and build stamina.
3x3 training. You guys mentioned that you watch film. So watching film, I'm not sure whether it's a thing now in Singapore. Whether has it been something that all the teams practice? But as for myself, I've grown up watching film in a sense whereby my mother used to come to my games and film my games, and I'll be watching them. Even though at that point in time I didn't know, I was like kind of analyzing my games and kind of figuring out things out. To me, it was just fun. I watching myself and then finding out spots that I could have been looking out for. And that was I grew up watching film in a sense.
Yep.
But has it been a thing in Singapore?
I would say not from a technical point of view. I think it was just to see like, oh, what was I doing, and maybe subconsciously I'm like, oh, that was a terrible shot. I shouldn't have done it. But not really in terms of the movement and in terms of even like mannerisms, right? Like down to the details. We also did have that. We had CDs where the games were recorded and I would watch them afterwards. But I think now the emphasis is a lot different. Like, how well did you execute a play, right? How well did you, if there was a bit of a miscommunication, how well did you recover? And I think that is something that people will increasingly start doing because like there are cameras everywhere now. So
exactly.
There's no excuse,
So,
right?
If you were to balance out like individual skill training and then with watching film, which one do you think weighs more than the other, or what is it to you?
Individual training definitely always comes first, right? You can't be a good player if you just purely watch film on yourself and not try to do them in practice or correct whatever movements you did imperfectly in practice. I think they should definitely go hand in hand. Like film would be a very, very useful tool to guide training because it gives you the perspective of your most recent game and what is on, how players are moving, what is on their mind, right? And then you constantly build and build and build on top of that. So individual training has to be or should be linked to the insights you get from film. That is how I guess our coach and our structure has been over the past year, and we've definitely seen so much improvement, right? I think the level of confidence and the level of consistency we have has really skyrocketed because we see film and we know that, okay, we were meant to set a screen here, but we didn't. And we're all smart players, we're all adults, so it doesn't really require much for us to implement that in the next game. I would basically be on the court 3 times a week usually, and then rehab is probably every day or once every 2 days, and then gym would be on the days in between.
Being in the gym, how is that important?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are, what stage you are, right? I feel like if you are like me, slightly not a spring chicken anymore, injury prevention is also quite a key part of gym training, right? I'm not gonna go in. I'm not gonna try to lift as heavy as I can every single session and try to explode up and jump as high as I can, right? What I'm trying to do is to build longevity and to make sure that I can withstand hits. I'm in control of my body. I have a strong core. So I feel like very recently, especially in the last year, simple compound exercises like pull-ups, right, have been such a big part of my routine. I've got a pull-up bar in my house, so there's really no excuse. But I've seen so much changes in terms of like maintaining weight, maintaining your ability to shoot, to box out, to get rebounds, because the movement is so relevant for basketball, right? Even when you're trying to dunk it and hang on the rim, it does require some sort of let or some sort of movement that you get from hanging on a pull-up bar. There's so much content online on how to train, what to do, getting all these equipment, and I think those are useful, but I sort of understand my body, I understand my recovery rate, and I think that now for me it's a lot more strategic. I'm trying to get strong. I'm trying to maintain my weight, but I'm not trying to like go extremely hard and injure myself, right? In fact, I want to do the opposite. I want to make sure that I have longevity.
Given that now you're kind of focusing on longevity now, if you had a chance to like redo all your training again, like let's say now you're back to your teen days, 13 years old, and you had a chance to redo all your training, what would you focus on first, and then slowly progress to the next thing? Like how would you reshuffle your training program?
I think first of all, it's a hard question because it's like it's a journey, right? Like when you start training, you need to listen to your body, you need to see how it goes, what your goals are, blah blah blah, and then you tailor your training accordingly. You need to have that journey, become who you want to be, right, in the future. But if there's something that is sort of independent from that, right, is to be a lot more organized in the training from young. So I won't. It's not a question of doing what is. I think it's more of a question of what is the system around your training. So I would say my sort of mistake growing up was trying to do everything at once, right, and not being organized. So if I, for some reason, feel like I need to jump higher, I would then maybe spend the next 2 weeks doing it, and then the next agenda would be to shoot better, and then I would sort of drop that, move into trying to shoot better, right? But I think what a more organized approach that sort of keeps all these things together and make sure that you don't forget on these goals is to like write them down, keep a log, make sure that you recognize what your weaknesses are because they will change as you get stronger, as you get better, and then constantly work on those. I think like building a right system and having the structure is half the battle.
Like I totally understand when you talk about structure. Last time in the past when I would think about basketball as a training, it would be all over the place. It has just so many things you want to work on because we are fresh, we are new, we don't really know what we want to work on next. So we just jump right into the next most interesting thing. And I'm not sure you remember Peter and David.
Yeah.
They were the ones that actually got me into plyometrics.
Yeah.
They were the ones that were super crazy. I'm not sure you were with them when they were crazy about plyos, but they were the ones when they at the start they would do like what program was that? Flight
Air alert.
Air alert, yeah,
No.
air alert.
Yeah.
Yeah, like every single time after basketball training in school, we would stay back just an additional 30 minutes to an hour just to do air alert. And
Yep.
like the amount of information the guys watching right now that they have online on what they can do to jump higher, the plyos that they can perform, is just so much as compared to what we had back in the day. I'm so glad that we also have Isaac, coming from a perspective playing with European players as an Asian. Isaac really knows what he needs to work on to continue playing competitively with these players. Anything else that we want to tell the youth of Singapore, people who are watching, looking at us, looking for their direction in terms of training in Singapore?
Just stay consistent, have a structure, and be independent in terms of your own training because ultimately you need to listen to your own body. People can tell you get a lot of information from everywhere, and people might say a certain form of method works, but it may not necessarily work for you. So always make sure that you stay consistent and you listen to your body and what you need.
It's been such a pleasure to have Isaac coming on the channel to talk about training, coming all the way from UK, London, taking some time out of his day to share with us his whole experience, growing up as a player, how did he get onto the national team, and even getting all the way to London to play competitively 3x3 against the much bigger players there. And at the same time, holding a full-time job as a lawyer. So yeah, thanks so much, Isaac. Any last words?
Keep supporting the channel, keep supporting Goodell's ventures. I think he's building a really good community in Singapore, and as we start moving up the value chain, I feel like this sort of initiatives from the grassroots is much needed.
All right, thanks so much, Isaac. If you guys are still here, remember to subscribe, remember to share this with all your friends who are hoopers in Singapore. And if you want to see more of this type of content, like podcast interviews with key players in Singapore, coaches, comment down below and let me know. And I will see you guys in the next episode.